Today's gospel is tough. There's no sugarcoating it. If it did not shake you a little bit, well, maybe you weren't listening. These are the Beatitudes from Luke, which are a little bit different than the more familiar ones we know from Matthew. Luke has 4 Beatitudes, Matthew 8 or 9. Luke does not spiritualize poverty and hunger, and to make things crystal clear, he has 4 woes for the bad guys. And this comes from Jesus, the Jesus who points out what is good, what is not so good about the situation that we find ourselves in. Blessings and woes. I think they cannot be understood apart from the person of Jesus. Because what made Jesus so loving a person was that he knew what hurts us. He knew then, he knows now. What hurts the human heart, Jesus knew, precisely as a man, as a human being. It shows up all throughout his public life, with a woman caught in adultery, in danger of stoning, with a woman who touches him to the scandal of his host, at the well with a Samaritan to the amazement of his disciples, with the women of Jerusalem who weep for him on the way to the cross. It shows up in all those passages that describe Jesus as having compassion. Compassion from the Greek verb that has to do with our inward parts, our entrails, our bowels, if you will, our heart. A word that is a wedding of mercy and affection and sympathy. This powerful verb, compassion, is used over the sick, reaching out to Jesus, a crowd that is hungry. It's used for a mother whose only son has died, a king's servant dreadfully in debt, a boy cruelly tormented by an evil spirit. It's used with Jesus and the 2 blind men sitting by the side of the roadside, a leper begging to be made clean, a man left half dead by robbers. It is the verb used with the prodigal son. To all of these, Jesus reached out, and for each his heart was torn. Not a sweet, syrupy, sentimental feeling, but he felt what they were feeling. Not because he was an all-knowing God, but because he was an all-human man. He was so exquisitely human that he was attuned to all that is human. Not indeed to adultery, but to the adulteress. Not to leprosy, but to each leper. Not necessarily to a dead Lazarus, but to his sorrowing sisters. In fact, this was his humanness. He vibrated to, he resonated to the loves and hates, the hopes and fears, the joys and sadness of each person who touched his life. This is the Jesus who says, "Blessed are your poor, or you that hunger, or you that weep. Blessed are you when people hate you." Because he knew what hurt them. How did he get that way? Well, in large measure, I think, he got that way by experiencing it. He did not discover poverty by reading unemployment figures in the newspaper. He had no home. He told us he had nowhere to lay his head. No one had to tell him what hunger tasted like. He went without food for 40 days in the desert. Tears were not only what other people shed. Jesus wept over Jerusalem, and he wept over Lazarus, over his city, and over his friend. He did not hear about hatred from his disciples. His own townspeople tried to throw him over a cliff, and his own people finally nailed him to a cross. Over and above that, Jesus went out to where these people work. He did not wait in Nazareth synagogue for the hungry and the sorrowing to make an appointment. He went looking for them by foot and by boat. We are told that Jesus went about all their cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, curing every kind of disease and infirmity. But Jesus was not simply curing disease, he was healing a person. "What do you want me to do for you?" he asks. So he wants eyes to meet. He wants to see someone's face. He wants to explain what has really happened in the depths of that person's heart and how that person's faith in him was what brought about healing. Yet even more marvelously, Jesus not only knew what hurt his fellow Jews, he knows what hurts you and me. And I'm not delving into pious poetry here, but our Christian living makes little sense unless we believe at this moment that Jesus knows what hurts us. Not only knows, but knowing seeks us out, whatever our kind of poverty or hunger, however we weep, however we feel unloved. His plea to his people is his promise to us. Come to me, all who are weary and are burdened, and I will give you rest. It's another profound Christian paradox. Jesus does indeed seek us out, but we have to come to him. Like the Canaanite woman, we have to come before him and cry out, Lord, help me. The same Jesus told of the poor and hungry, the distressed and the despised, that they were special to him. Told us that we shall inherit his kingdom, rate eternal life if we reach out to them, with gifts indeed, bread for the swollen belly and water for parched lips, a warm bed for the homeless and clean clothes for the ragged, a word of comfort for the sick and the dying. But even that, good as it is not good enough. It's not Christ-like enough. It's not human enough. Because we have to care. We have to love. Because unless we love those we reach out to, as St. Vincent de Paul warned, unless we love them, the poor will resent the bread they have to take from us. Loving the outcast. Loving the unloved. All but impossible unless we know what hurts them. And not just from TV or the newspapers. No, I think there is no substitute for experience. Unless we actually experience what hurts our brothers and sisters, it will be very difficult for us to truly empathize with them. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not laying a guilt trip on the Newman community. If I were, my face would have much more egg on it than yours. I'm simply saying that God might be calling us to pay attention to the kinds of experiences that hurt our brothers and sisters. And still, Lent is coming up fast in 2.5 weeks. We will be moving from ashes to the crucifixion, reliving the dying that gave us life. If we are looking for a way to share Jesus' passion, we might want to share his compassion. The world we walk, however small, is heavy with hurt. Some of it is obvious to the naked eye, but much of it is cooped up inside skin. This might be a very good time to listen, to be present to another with your whole self, with your heart, with the marrow in your bones, that we may have the courage to touch the compassion of Christ to another. Only in this way will we turn the gospel woes into beatitudes. Blessed are you who are rich and full. Blessed are you who laugh and are loved. For you have enriched others. For you have filled their hungers. For you have brought laughter to their lives. And you have brought love to their lives. For you have healed their hurts as Jesus did. Blessed are you.